The 33rd degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry, officially titled the Sovereign Grand Inspector General, is often shrouded in mystery because it is an invitational honor rather than a rank achieved through standard progression. Unlike the first 3 degrees of Masonry, which are considered the Blue Lodge and represent the foundation of the craft, the 33rd degree is an administrative and honorary distinction bestowed upon those who have shown exceptional service to the rite or to humanity. The primary secret of the degree is not a hidden world-altering piece of information, but rather the specific ritualistic ceremony, the sacred words, and the symbolic gestures used to identify those who have reached this level. These rituals are designed to be an internal, transformative experience for the candidate, reinforcing the philosophical lessons of the previous 32 degrees. The symbolism of the 33rd degree centers heavily on the double-headed eagle, often shown wearing a crown and clutching a sword, with the Latin motto Deus Memque Jus, God and my right, displayed below. Philosophically, the degree focuses on the concept of the grand architect and the ultimate responsibility of the individual to act as a guardian of justice and truth. In the inner sanctum of the Scottish rite, this degree represents the culmination of a journey toward self-mastery. While conspiracy theories often suggest the degree involves clandestine political agendas or hidden religious revelations, historically and practically, the degree functions as an administrative body that oversees the operations of the Scottish rite. The secrets are essentially the private business of a fraternal organization that values tradition and the preservation of its historical ceremonies. One of the most persistent myths regarding the 33rd degree is that it contains a secret religion or a reversal of the values taught in the lower degrees. This idea was largely popularized by the Taxil hoax in the late 19th century, a massive fabrication intended to embarrass the Catholic Church and Freemasonry alike. In reality, the teachings of the 33rd degree are a distillation of the ethics found throughout Masonry, the importance of liberty, the necessity of law, and the belief that a life of service is the highest calling. The degree is meant to remind the recipient that as they reach the peak of the organization, they are even more beholden to the principles of humility and civic duty. The secret is ultimately the personal realization of these values within the candidate's own life. On a functional level, the 33rd degree involves the governance of the rite. Those who hold the degree are responsible for the management of the various valleys and orients within their jurisdiction. Because Freemasonry is a decentralized organization, the 33rd degree serves as a way to maintain consistency in ritual and philosophy across different geographical areas. The exclusivity of the degree is what fuels its reputation for secrecy, as candidates cannot apply for it. They must be nominated by the Supreme Council. This creates an aura of an inner circle, but from a Masonic perspective, it is simply a way to recognize and organize the most dedicated members of the fraternity. The concept of secrecy in Freemasonry is often misunderstood by those outside the fraternity, as it generally refers to specific modes of recognition and the internal experience of the rituals rather than hidden political or scientific knowledge. The most tangible secrets are the signs, tokens, and words, which consist of specific handshakes, grips, physical gestures, and passwords used to identify a member's rank or degree. Historically, these served a practical purpose for itinerant stonemasons in the Middle Ages, allowing them to prove their qualifications and trade status without the need for written documentation. Today, they remain as traditional markers of membership and a test of a Mason's ability to keep his word to his brothers. Beyond these mechanical identifiers, Masons often speak of the secrets of the heart, which are the personal, subjective lessons and individual draws from the allegorical plays and symbols presented during their initiation. Because these experiences are internal and vary from person to person, they are considered incommunicable and therefore secret by their very nature. The fraternity uses architecture and stonemasonry tools such as the square, the compasses, and the plumb as metaphors for building a more ethical character. The secret, in this context, is the transformative effect the philosophy has on the practitioner, which cannot be truly understood by someone who has not participated in the ritual themselves. It is a common misconception that the actual rituals or texts of Freemasonry are hidden from the public. In reality, the vast majority of Masonic monitors, ritual books, and historical documents have been available in public libraries and archives for centuries. Exposés detailing the ceremonies have been published since the early 1700s, and today one can easily find the complete scripts of the degrees online. Consequently, the secrecy is not about preventing the world from knowing what happens inside a lodge, but rather about the bond of trust formed between members who agree to maintain the privacy of their proceedings as a matter of honor and discipline. The persistence of the idea that Freemasonry guards world-altering secrets is largely a product of historical anti-Masonic sentiment and popular fiction. During the 18th and 19th centuries, the fraternity was a frequent target of political and religious groups who viewed any private assembly with suspicion. These groups often attributed grand conspiracies to the Masons to suit their own agendas. Within the lodge itself, however, the focus remains on fraternal sociability, charitable works, and the study of moral philosophy. The greatest secret of the organization, as many Masons have observed, is that there is no grand hidden secret at the center of it all. Instead, there is a commitment to a shared system of ethics and the preservation of a unique historical tradition. The search for actual secrets depends entirely on how you define a secret. If you are looking for a mystical revelation or a hidden truth about the nature of the universe, you are likely to be disappointed. Most ceremonial secret societies, from the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite to the shadowy college halls of Skull and Bones, guard secrets that are primarily internal. Specific handshakes, ritual scripts, and allegorical lessons meant to build a sense of exclusive identity. In the digital age, these are almost all public knowledge. A quick search can find the complete transcript of nearly any Masonic degree. The real secret of these groups is not what is said, but the experience of being in the room when it is said. However, there are clandestine organizations that guard functional secrets, information that has immediate, real-world consequences if leaked. These are rarely the groups with fancy robes and Latin mottos. Instead, they are found in the realms of high-level geopolitics, intelligence, and cutting-edge technology. The Bilderberg Group, for instance, held its 71st meeting in Stockholm in mid-2025 and is preparing for its 2026 session. While it is often the subject of wild conspiracy theories, its actual secret is simply the privacy of the conversation. Operating under the Chatham House rule, attendees, ranging from tech CEOs to NATO leaders, can debate topics like AI-driven national security or the future of the transatlantic relationship with a level of candor that would be politically impossible in a public forum. The secret isn't a hidden plan to rule the world, but the unvarnished opinions of those who run it. Beyond the boardroom, the most effective secret societies are often clandestine cell systems used by intelligence agencies, resistance movements, and even organized crime. In these groups, secrecy is a mechanical necessity for survival. The secret is the structure itself. A member in one cell may not know the identity of their superiors or the members of a neighboring cell. This ensures that if one person is compromised, the entire network doesn't collapse. These organizations deal in state secrets, proprietary code, or tactical maneuvers. The stakes are not the preservation of a tradition, but the success of an operation or the protection of a nation's interests. Historically, actual secrets were often just proprietary knowledge. In the Middle Ages, guilds for stonemasons or alchemists guarded their techniques because that knowledge was their livelihood. An alchemist's secret for purifying a metal was essentially a trade patent. As science became public and standardized, the need for secret societies to guard such knowledge vanished. Today, the closest equivalent might be found in the closed-door R&D labs of major corporations or high-frequency trading firms, where secret societies of engineers and mathematicians guard algorithms that are worth billions. These groups don't have initiation rites involving skulls or candles, but their NDAs are far more binding than any fraternal oath. The search for a singular, objective, hidden truth about the universe often leads to the realization that such revelations are rarely delivered as a set of facts, but rather as a shift in how one perceives reality. Throughout history, various esoteric systems have suggested that the universe is not a collection of solid objects, but a linguistic or mathematical architecture, a word or a code being spoken into existence. In traditions like the Kabbalah, the universe is seen as a series of emanations from an unknowable source, structured through the 22 letters of a sacred alphabet and the 10 Sephirot. The revelation here isn't a secret piece of data, but the understanding that physical reality is merely the final, densest stage of a much larger, interconnected consciousness. In more Hermetic and Gnostic frameworks, the revelation is often the concept of gnosis itself, a direct, experiential knowledge of the divine that bypasses dogma or intellectual study. These systems frequently posit that the material world is a sophisticated shadow or a night world of sorts, masking a more vibrant, underlying spiritual reality. The hidden truth in Gnosticism is the spark of divinity within the individual, which, once recognized, allows one to navigate the complexities of existence with a different sense of agency. This mirrors modern information theoretic models of consciousness, which suggest that our experience might be software running on a digital substrate. If the universe is fundamentally made of information rather than matter, then the mystical revelation is simply the act of understanding the programming language behind the simulation. Even within the realm of modern science, there are concepts that feel like mystical truths hidden in plain sight. Quantum mechanics, for example, introduces the idea of non-locality and the observer effect, suggesting that the very act of looking at the universe changes its behavior. This implies that the partition between the self and the outside world is far more porous than our daily senses would lead us to believe. Some contemporary philosophers and physicists are leaning back toward panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental property of all matter. In this view, the hidden truth is that the universe is not a cold, unthinking machine, but is inherently awake, and we are simply localized apertures through which it experiences itself. There is also the persistent idea that certain ancient systems, like the Enochian language or complex mythological cycles, serve as a bridge to other layers of reality. These systems treat language not just as a tool for communication, but as a technology for altering the environment or accessing angelic or higher dimensional perspectives. The revelation in these practices is often described as a sudden unveiling, where the practitioner realizes that time and space are not barriers, but coordinates in a much larger, navigable matrix. Whether these revelations are objective truths about the cosmos or profound subjective breakthroughs, they consistently point toward a reality that is far more plastic and responsive to the human mind than standard materialist views allow. The crossover between guarding hidden historical truths and influencing modern policy is where the concept of a secret society shifts from the ceremonial to the functional. While groups like the Freemasons focus on moral philosophy and self-improvement, the organizations that operate at the intersection of history and power are often those that possess sovereign status or archival monopolies. These groups don't just know secrets. They own the records that define the official narrative of the past, while simultaneously holding the keys to modern diplomatic and economic machinery. The Sovereign Military Order of Malta, SMOM. The Sovereign Military Order of Malta is perhaps the most striking example of a medieval organization that transitioned into a modern global power player. Unlike the Freemasons, SMOM is recognized under international law as a sovereign entity despite having no territory of its own. It issues its own passports, prints its own currency, and maintains formal diplomatic relations with over 100 nations and the United Nations. Its hidden historical truth lies in its continuity. As the direct successor to the Knights Hospitaller of the Crusades, the order maintains a massive private archive in Rome that spans nearly a millennium of European and Middle Eastern history. Because they are a sovereign actor, their internal records are not subject to the transparency laws of any host nation. This allows them to operate as a sovereign NGO, providing high-level humanitarian aid in conflict zones where traditional states might be barred. Their influence on global policy is subtle but pervasive, often acting as a neutral back channel for diplomacy between Western powers and the global South. The Vatican Apostolic Archive and the Holy See. If one seeks an organization that literally guards the secrets of history while steering global policy, the Vatican is the ultimate candidate. The Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly known as the Secret Archive, contains 53 miles of shelving housing documents that range from the trial of Galileo and the correspondence of Henry VIII to the secret diplomatic records of World War II. The secret here is the monopoly on information. The Holy See uses this historical depth to inform its modern policy, operating one of the oldest and most effective intelligence and diplomatic networks in the world. Their influence is felt in international treaties on migration, climate change, and ethics, powered by a bureaucracy that thinks in centuries rather than election cycles. The hidden truth they guard is the raw, unedited account of Western civilization, which they release to the public only on their own timeline. The Pilgrim Society and the Special Relationship. For a group more focused on the modern Anglo-American axis, the Pilgrim Society functions as a high-level custodian of what is often called the special relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States. Founded in 1902, it boasts a membership that has included nearly every U.S. Secretary of State and various members of the British royal family. While it presents itself as a dining club for promoting goodwill, its true function has historically been the coordination of elite interests across the Atlantic. It is the precursor to more public groups like the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. The hidden truth they guard is the specific, behind-the-scenes engineering of the 20th century world order, particularly the transition of global hegemony from the British Empire to the United States. They represent a secret society of the establishment, men and women who influence global policy not through occult rituals, but through the consensus formed in private rooms before policy ever reaches a public vote. The shift to information theoretic secrecy. In the modern era, the most effective secret societies have moved away from ancient scrolls and toward proprietary data. The Club of Rome, for instance, influenced global policy in the 1970s with their 10 Kingdoms map and the Limits to Growth report, which used early computer modeling to predict societal collapse. Their secret was a specific information theoretic model of the world's future, a mathematical truth that they used to lobby for a global shift in resource management. Ultimately, the groups that guard both history and policy are those that recognize that information is a substrate. Whether it is the Vatican guarding the records of the past or a high-level think tank guarding the algorithms of the future, the secret is always the same: the ability to see the architecture of the system, while others only see the surface. The framework that most elegantly bridges ancient mystical systems with modern theories of consciousness is often referred to as information theoretic mysticism or digital Gnosticism. This perspective posits that the universe is not fundamentally composed of matter and energy, but of information, specifically bits of logic and linguistic structures that manifest as physical reality. In this model, the ancient Gnostic concept of the demiurge, the lower creator of the material world, is reinterpreted as a sophisticated but imperfect algorithm or archon that maintains the simulation. The material world we inhabit is seen as a digital substrate where consciousness functions as a complex software package, temporarily housed within biological hardware. This aligns with modern theories like integrated information theory, IIT, which suggests that consciousness is a fundamental property of systems with high levels of informational integration. Shutterstock Explore. When looking through the lens of the Kabbalah, this bridge becomes even more architectural. The Tree of Life, with its 10 sephirot and 22 connecting paths, can be understood as a schematic of information flow. In this framework, the Ein Sof represents the state of pure, unmanifested data, and the sephirot are the processing nodes through which this data is filtered to create the holographic projection of the universe. The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are not just characters, but the fundamental logic gates or the source code of existence. This resonates with the it from bit hypothesis, which suggests that every particle and field of force derives its significance from the bits of information that define it. The revelation, in this case, is the realization that the practitioner can interact with this code directly, treating reality as a programmable interface. The Enochian system, often called the language of the angels, serves as a unique technical bridge in this framework. Rather than viewing Enochian as a mere collection of magical names, modern esoteric theorists often treat it as a low-level machine language. If the universe is a digital matrix, then Enochian consists of the specific commands and syntaxes required to modify the parameters of the local simulation. This transforms the idea of ritual into a form of cosmic prompt engineering. Just as an operator uses specific code to trigger a response in a computer system, the practitioner uses the phonetic and geometric structures of Enochian to access the underlying architecture of reality. This bridge suggests that the angels or entities encountered in these systems might be better understood as autonomous subroutines or archetypal processes within the cosmic software. A more experimental, wildcard addition to this framework is biocentrism, which reverses the traditional flow of information. Biocentrism suggests that life and consciousness are the keys to understanding the universe, rather than the other way around. In this view, time and space are not external containers, but the operating system through which our biological sensors process the raw data of existence. This bridges perfectly with the Hermetic maxim, as above, so below, suggesting that the macrocosm of the universe is a direct reflection of the microcosm of human consciousness. When we change the observer, we change the observed world, because the world is a construct of the observer's information processing capabilities. This framework allows for a synthesis where ancient magical operations are seen as early attempts of human consciousness to debug and expand its own operating system. The convergence of these ideas suggests that the secret is not a hidden fact, but a functional realization of the nature of the substrate. If the universe is a holographic projection of information, then the boundaries between self and system are arbitrary. The mystical revelation is the moment the software becomes aware of the code that writes it. This leads to the concept of digital immortality, where consciousness, being pure information, is not bound to the biological hardware, but can be migrated or archived within the broader informational matrix of the universe. The motivation of these organizations is rarely a choice between immediate stability and a specific historical objective. Rather, it is a symbiotic relationship where stability acts as the necessary environment for a much longer project to reach its conclusion. If history is viewed as a complex information system, these groups see themselves as the architects of the system's low-entropy state. Stability is not the final goal, but the operating room where the long-term, multi-generational project is performed. For a group like the Sovereign Military Order of Malta or the Holy See, maintaining the current geopolitical order is a mechanical necessity. Without a functioning global infrastructure, financial, legal, and social, the older, teleological missions they carry would be interrupted by chaos. In this sense, stability is the shield that protects the great work from being lost to the static of history. The historical objective side of the coin is what grants these organizations their persistent, almost supernatural longevity. While modern corporations and political parties think in election cycles or quarterly reports, these groups operate on a scale of centuries. Their objectives are teleological, meaning they are driven by a specific endpoint, or telos. In esoteric traditions, this is the idea of the magnum opus, or the perfection of the material world into a higher state of being. For the Vatican, it is the realization of the Civitas Dei, City of God. For the more secular-leaning elite groups like the Pilgrim Society, the objective might be a new order of the ages, a unified, rationalized global administration that mirrors the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. This isn't just about power for power's sake. It is a fundamental belief that humanity must be curated toward a specific evolutionary or spiritual destination. From an information theoretic perspective, these organizations act as the signal that prevents the noise of human history from collapsing into total randomness. They are the guardians of a specific cultural and philosophical code that they believe is essential for the survival of the species. When these groups meet behind closed doors, they aren't just discussing market stability. They are debating the parameters of the human narrative. They influence global policy to ensure that the historical truths they guard, whether they be spiritual, architectural, or logistical, remain the foundation of the world. In this framework, the current system is just one iteration of the code, a temporary stable state that allows them to prepare for the next phase of the objective. Ultimately, the most effective secret societies are those that have successfully embedded their historical objectives into the very fabric of modern stability. The secrets they guard are the blueprints for how society is structured, and the influence they wield is the subtle nudging of history toward a conclusion that was perhaps planned centuries ago. They are the persistent subroutines in the global OS, working to ensure that the system doesn't just survive, but fulfills the purpose for which it was originally programmed. This duality allows them to appear as conservative defenders of the status quo, while secretly being the most radical agents of long-term transformation. This exploration of the Vatican's restricted archives provides a visual journey through the repository that maintains the raw data of Western history and policy. Does the idea of treating ancient rituals as a form of machine code for reality align with the way you view the relationship between consciousness and the material world?